20 years of empty chairs at dinner, 20 years of wondering where you are. Your mother keeps your room just as it was. Your father still looks for you in every car. We never stopped believing you'd come home. We never stopped calling out your name. Oh, we didn't know if you could hear us. We kept the porch light burning all the same. Now we know your name. Now we know you're found. No more Jane or John Doe. No more searching around. You can finally come home where you belong. Though the mystery of what happened still lives on. We have you back. We have you back. That's the first step. That's where healing begins. And sometimes justice follows close behind. When we put the broken pieces together. A phone call came on a Tuesday morning. The detective's voice was soft and sure. We found him, ma'am, we found your boy. After all these years, we know for sure. I dropped the phone and started crying, joy and sorrow all mixed up as one. My baby's finally coming home to me, even though his race on earth is a run. We're restoring their names once more than just numbers, more than Jane or John. Every DNA match is a win. Every identification brings them home. These aren't just stats on a page. These were lives that mattered, hearts that love. Science catches up to what hope always knew. Some lights can never be lost. We may never know the how or why. The full story may stay hidden in the dark, but you're not unknown anymore, my love. You're not just a question mark. And sometimes when they give us back your name, they catch the ones who took you away. Sometimes identification opens doors that lead to justice and a reckoning day. Now we know your name. Now we know you've been found. No more Jane or John Doe. No more searching around. You can finally come home where you belong. Though questions are justice beats in both our hearts.
You're good. You're good to go.
Oh, okay. We got to come up with better code words there, Doc, because you tell me I'm good to go, but you need to say something like winter is coming.
I'm sorry. I figured when I was done counting, you knew. You know.
No.
Okay.
I just thought you were learning to count again.
Well, I could take a crash course. Yes, I'm sorry.
I love you, Doc. You make every day better. I want you to know that.
All right.
Hello, Krusty and Irish Amy and the Fala and the squeegee of justice. I'm so glad you guys popped in tonight. We're still getting our game together. What can I say? It's always going to be fun around here. Always on the edge of disaster. Fall of snow. I think we have a Jon Snow fan here. Okay. Well, I'm glad you guys are here joining us. I want to give my greetings to my truth seekers and my justice warriors. I'm your storyteller in the wilderness of injustice. My ride or die Doc is riding shotgun as we navigate the darkness where the predators hunt and the system fails. You ready, Doc?
Always.
Irish Amy is all for House Martell and says hi to Doc and the kitties. Well, we're ready to shine a lot on the light on the forgotten stories that society they'd rather leave buried. So buckle up. The path ahead grows bumpy as we lead you through another section of this nightmare they call the justice system. And tonight, we're discussing something that offers hope in an often dark world here. I'm glad you asked, Squeege. The power of restoring people's names. That's what we're going to talk about. We're exploring cases where families finally locate their missing loved ones, sometimes after decades of searching for them. So we know it can be rough. Hey, William, thanks for joining us. Sometimes there's still going to be a mystery about what happened to them and what caused their death, but at the least the family knows that where they're at, and this is the first step for them. You know, there's going to be more for them, but this is the first step. The first case we're going to talk about tonight, you guys, is we're going to talk about Anthony Angelli Rea. He was 32 years in a Marsh. Yeah. Now let's begin with this recent case because it just broke. Anthony Angelli Rea, in August of 1988, he was a teenager, was reported missing from Harbor School in Newbury, Massachusetts. More than 4 years later, on November 28th of 1992, skeletal remains were discovered partially buried in marsh grass along Interstate 95 south in Newburyport. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. Hi, Pammy. Glad you're here, sweetheart. An autopsy confirmed the body was that of a teenage male, but no cause of death could be determined. And we understand that because it had been there for 4 years. And that makes it difficult. But for 32 years, the state and local police worked to identify those remains. Despite some promising leads, the investigators could never make a positive ID because of limitations in DNA technology at the time. Because we got to remember it. He disappeared in 1988, was found in 1992. Look at how long ago that was for DNA. But this is where the science becomes the hero of our story. Just this past Thursday, the Essex District Attorney's Office announced that those remains belonged to Anthony and Angelli Rea, the same team who went missing nearly 4 decades ago. Born in 1973, Anthony spent part of his childhood in Malden with his mother. It was Othram, a private forensic laboratory in Texas, that finally solved the case using advanced DNA testing. They created a detailed DNA profile and used forensic genetic genealogy to generate new investigative leads. The case remains unresolved, though, for what happened to him. The investigators are still going to be searching, trying to get some answers about what happened to Anthony, but at least his family finally knows where he's at. Hello, therapist, thank you for joining us, hun. Our next case we're going to talk about is William Will Cross. This is a family's 7-year search before we reveal some news that we have on another case that we discussed in May. So let's talk about William Will Cross. This case really illustrates how jurisdictional confusion and system failures can postpone justice for years. Will was a 29-year-old man, and he was from Scout County, Tennessee, who disappeared on May 18th of 2018. So he was disappeared from Tennessee, okay? After taking a late night walk in the woods. He was dropped off on Williamsburg Street in Whitley City, Kentucky. Around midnight, he called a family member, and he said that he was walking through the woods, but the call got disconnected. And once that happened, he was never seen alive again. And this is one thing that Pammy's daughter, Whitney, with her group, they talk about this situation where you have interstates in an investigation. So the family's in Tennessee, he disappears in Kentucky. You're your family member's best advocate. And that's something you learn when you go through Whitney's program that they've set up, and it's helpful. You have to be the one to stand up and call out when you see things aren't being done. Will was a troubled young man who sometimes worked construction jobs, and he struggled with methamphetamine addiction, and he'd been released from jail just 3 days before he went missing. But his sister Ashley wants people to know he was more than his addiction. He brought, hey, Pammy, I'll give Whitney and Melissa shouts out anytime. They're great. But he bought groceries for acquaintances. He picked up toys for friends' sons. He gave rides, loaned money if people he knew were in need. She said he had a really good heart and he exuded love. Well, then in October of 2023, nearly 5.5 years later, a teenager found human remains during a hike in a wooded area off Sweeney Drive in Revlo, Kentucky, near a stream hidden by trees. So it wasn't until March of 2024 that DNA testing confirmed these were Will's remains. But here's what makes this case particularly frustrating. Will's family truly believes that the jurisdiction confusion hindered this investigation drastically. Because of living in Tennessee, last seen in Kentucky, the family claims that a joint investigation between the departments never took place. They didn't talk. So how's that going to end up, something happening? An active investigation didn't even start until Scott County hired Detective David Stevens in 2022, 4 years after Will had disappeared. Stevens carried out a thorough search covering 1,721 acres himself, and that's roughly the size of New York's Central Park. He did that by himself. The family received numerous tips over the years, some claiming Will was shot, some that he was put in a wood chipper device, tortured, thrown in a well, or even fed to pigs. I mean, these people just were cruel to this family. As awkward and unreal as it might seem, Ashley said finding the remains where we found them was actually a relief compared to the thought of her brother going through a wood chipper, or he was down a well and we'd never get to bring him home. When Will's remains were identified, his family scoured the site for 5 days to find more. His mother saw the first bone. Ashley found several more. She said, I held my brother's bones in my hands. It was hard, and it got harder each day. The initial remains revealed about 20 bones, and during the family search, 26 more pieces were found. The family still doesn't have all of Will's remains, and his cause of death remains undetermined. But Detective Stevens believes several people know exactly what happened to Will. Only fan, good to see you. Nope, haven't done that to anybody yet. William just wouldn't have gone down there like that and just lain in a creek and died, his mother said. Robin Phillips told investigators that just wouldn't happen. And we know how, like she said, the jurisdictions weren't talking. So it's really sad that they're not getting the justice that they totally wanted, but at least they have him home, and that meant so much to them. But now we're going to talk about Wynona Michel. And actually, this is a big announcement because back in May, we covered her story, and I told you at the time that the coroner's office said they knew who the person was, but they hadn't come out with it out loud yet because they were notifying family. And this was the young girl that they found murdered in Illinois in a cornfield. And she was terribly, terribly deceased. I mean, deleted. It was horrendous. And we're not going to go through it because her family doesn't need to know that. I'm sure they know more than they want to. But the big announcement is she got her name back. Her name is Wynona Nadine Michel. Wynona was 30 years old. She was a Tennessee woman who was discovered in Madison County, Illinois, in a farm field on July 20th of 1990. She had been left in that cornfield, and they didn't think she'd been there long. And her case had remained unsolved for over 3 decades. And here's what we know about her final days. Her brother said she was kind of a gypsy, would go off, and they might not see her for a few months, and then they'd see her again. So Wynona was last seen actually by her family in Washington, D.C. area in May of 1990. So that's only a couple of months before she was deceased. She'd traveled by bus to Nashville in April of 1990 with her 2 children. And she decided to leave the kids with her family. And then she went into the Washington, D.C. area because she wanted to visit with some other relatives. She was reportedly traveling with the truck driver at the time of her disappearance. And he was an unidentified male truck driver whom the family last saw her with. But when she disappeared, because she had been known to go off at times for a month or so, nobody was concerned right away. But the breakthrough occurred in late 2024 when advanced forensic technology and DNA analysis finally identified her. Moo, you're supposed to behave yourself. It was a collaboration between the Madison County Sheriff's Department and the Illinois State Police Crime Lab, and Othram again, forensic company. Wynona's brother, Frank Bernard, attended the news conference announcing the identification. One of her 2 children is still alive, and the case remains an active homicide investigation. And authorities are seeking to identify her killer. And I think they're thinking it could have been perhaps a serial killer. Last year, there was a book published about serial killers and how many there might be that actually get into the long distance truck driving business. And of course, that doesn't mean that every long distance truck driver, we're not saying that, but unfortunately for some, that has been an easy way to carry on their terrible, terrible business. Now, our next story, actually, we're going to talk about misidentification that lasted for decades. Now, this case shows how even basic identification can go so wrong. And it's important to get these details right. Now, this happened back in May 25th of 1968. Children found the remains in Preble, it's Preble, Preble County, that were heavily decomposed and disturbed by flooding. For over 50 years, this person was known as Preble County Penny, believed to be a woman aged 30 to 50. Now, the case gained renewed attention in 2018, okay? Detective Adam Turner believed that there might be the remains of someone named Mary Jane Van Glider, a woman who had been missing since 1945. The body was exhumed in 2019, and genealogy testing commenced. And the really cool part is that Criminal Coffee with Derek Levasseur and Stephanie Harlow, actually with the people that put money toward Criminal Coffee, you help fund some of these investigations. And this was their first big investigation that they helped send money to get the testing done. So let's give a shout out to Criminal Coffee and the, Crime Weekly, because if it wasn't for Derek and Stephanie putting that together, who knows how long we would have waited. But here's the shocking twist. It was announced that Preble County Penny wasn't a woman. Do you hear that? All those years, they thought this was a woman. The remains belonged to Albert Allen Frost, a 28-year-old man who had disappeared between 1963 and 1964. So you want to talk about misidentifying remains? I don't know how they did it, but
well, that picture, I'm sorry it didn't look like a woman to me. It looked like a guy. So, but
yeah, it just, poor Albert. But Albert was especially small in stature. So when his remains were found heavily decomposed and submerged in water, the original investigation incorrectly determined his sex as, Moo, behavior. Moo, leave daddy's chair alone. She is being naughty, man. So they decided it was a female. Now, this can show how misidentification goes really wrong, whether it's race, sex, or age. It can totally derail an investigation because they weren't even looking at the right sex to try and locate this person. Albert had lived in Hamilton, Ohio for 25 miles from where his remains were discovered. If they'd had the right sex, they might have years ago been able to identify him. After his father's death, they said his mental health had declined and he encountered some legal trouble and he appeared to be homeless. However, he and his wife had adopted a 2-year-old girl named Tanny in 1962, and then he disappeared. But nobody reported him missing. Think about that. Nobody even bothered to say he was missing. Poor Albert. And really oddly, Albert had a sister named Clara Kapowski, who went missing in 1950 and 1952, leaving behind young children. Her remains have never been found. Albert's brother George told his daughters that their mother Eva had sold Clara to a German man and that Albert was deleted, potentially beaten outside a bar, rolled up in a carpet, and left on somebody's porch. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for his brother to be spouting off these stories, I'm beginning to get a little suspicious of George there myself. What can I say? It's just a little wild.
Maybe. Maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. But here's our fifth case that we're going to discuss. This is Martha Bassett. She's actually a Native woman. And a lot of times with Native women, they get misidentified as white women or Hispanic women or another nationality. It took 56 years, you guys, to get her home. And what happened was Martha, this is just highlights the tragic reality of missing Native American women. This case was solved 50 years later because of the failures of them even looking for her. Martha's skeletal remains were discovered in the brush near I-55 and Bogart Road in Will County, Illinois, on September 30th of 1968. The police were unable to identify her. Yeah, only 50 years it took them. So she was buried in Oakland Woods Cemetery in Wilmington as a Jane Doe. Martha was a 33-year-old Native American woman originally from Wapapo, Yakima County in Washington State. She had moved to Chicago in 1960 as part of the Indian Relocation Act of 1956. This was a federal program that actually encouraged the indigenous people to relocate from reservations to urban areas. Not for good reason. They're trying to take the land, but okay. So she moved. And by 1967, Martha had lost touch with her family. Now, the family, they went to Chicago because they were going to try and find her, but they came back empty-handed. They didn't know she was already deceased at the time. The case was never reopened until 2009 when Will County Coroner Patrick O'Neill established a cold case unit. And they exhumed Martha's remains, and experts determined that portions of the skeletal remains were of Native descent. So the current investigators contact Native tribes in several states, distributing flyers and shared them on social media within the Native communities. And a distant relative, Emily Washenese of Washington, reached out eventually and identified a niece on Martha's and made the DNA match. So the final confirmation arrived in September of 2024 via Othram restoring Martha's identity, and had been lost to history for over 50 years. Now, I was contemplating some of this. You think, people were gone for decades, and it's like nobody reports them missing. But then I got to thinking, how many of us know someone in our family that you lose contact with? That sometimes people go their own way and you just don't hear from them. If you do, it might be very rarely, and you just don't think terrible things could have happened to them. So that's one thing to think about as to why some of this happens, because unfortunately in families, sometimes they do kind of, and it might not even be that they've had an argument or anything. It can be that someone's grown up and they've decided to move on, or they no longer want to live in their hometown and they want to stretch their wings and get caught up in life. So that's just something to think about. Now, this next case is another wild one. This is Jack and Laurie Potter. Now, when justice finally comes, before we close with another story, this one shows how genetic genealogy just doesn't give the families closure. Sometimes it brings killers to justice. Now, with Laurie Potter, she was also never reported missing. And on October 5th of 2003, a maintenance worker at an apartment complex in Rancho San Diego found a pair of severed human legs in a dumpster. Yeah. Authorities determined these belonged to a woman, but they had no clue as to her identity. And the case just remained unsolved for nearly 20 years. Now, that changed when cold case investigators resumed their efforts in June of 2020. And they used genetic genealogy to analyze her DNA and identify some relatives. Now, it was discovered that the legs belonged to Laurie Diane Potter, a 54-year-old woman from Temecula. And yeah, okay. I lost my place there for a moment. I'm kind of discombobulated tonight, folks, so hang with me. If we don't have something happening, it's not our show, is it, Doc? So she was from this area, and no one, I mean, she had an adult son, and I'm trying to think, you didn't think it was odd your mom was missing? But anyway, the chilling part is after she was never reported missing, her family assumed she was alive but living somewhere else. The only person who knew she was dead was her husband, Jack Dennis Potter.
Hmm.
Now, Jack was living alive for 17 years. You know, Doc, 17 years he got
17
away with
years?
this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He had deleted his wife, and he later admitted to smothering her. And he became obsessed with a woman he had met at a strip club who also had the name
Jeez,
Laurie.
Quality woman.
And her name was Laurie too, the same as his wife. Isn't that a kick?
Okay.
And he spent a lot of money buying her a pickup truck, a ski boat, and even a Hummer SUV. He got her an apartment, a credit card with a $30,000 limit. She must have been really good at her job.
Wow.
That's all I can say.
I guess.
Meanwhile, he was financially exploiting his wife's death because he was opening up credit cards in her name and then fraudulently filing family court documents claiming he had contacted her about a divorce proceeding years after he had deleted her. He sold their family home in Temecula, and he kept all the profits. Nobody knew except for one guy, Detective Troy Dugal, when the authorities cracked the case. So Jack was arrested in May of 2021 at the age of 68. In February of 2025, he pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. And on Friday, May 3rd, 2025, he was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. He's now 72. He'll be way into his 80s, even if he serves the shortest possible sentence. And at his sentencing, Potter had the nerve to say he was sorry. He says, I let my emotions get the best of me that one time.
Well, wait a minute. He was how old when he got
arrested at 68.
68, and he only got 15 years to life for something that he kept secret for 17 years.
Yep. Isn't justice grand?
Wonderful.
So he said he was sorry. He said, I let my emotions get the better of me that one time. Yeah, like I believe you didn't possibly hit her before or something. She says, I don't know why. It just happened, and I'm sorry. So this case really reveals that dark side of these mysteries, that sometimes the person who knows exactly what happened is the one asking, have you seen my wife? Yeah. That was that. But hey, DNA came to the rescue. Now this case is Danny Lee Mitchell, lost and found in Cleveland. Now this case, he went missing near East 63rd Street and on April 2nd of 1980. His family reported him missing immediately. About a month later, skeletal remains were actually discovered nearby on East 65th Street. However, it took 40 years to link Danny to this John Doe. And I'm trying to figure out why. He went missing on East 63rd. They found remains a month later on East 65th. And nobody put one and one together equals two?
It's a police investigation at their finest.
I think you're right, Doc. I think you're right. So Danny's family reached out to the BCI in 2017 after they had seen a reconstruction of a John Doe in Twinsburg, Ohio. Sorry, I got my states mixed up. Oh, okay. The Squeege of Justice says the east side of Cleveland is pretty rough.
Yeah.
And I agree. I'm sure it is, but I'm just trying to figure a couple of blocks apart, and they couldn't figure out that, hey, maybe this could be this. I mean, come on, people. But after his family saw this one reconstruction in 2017, they realized it wasn't a match. So his case was then entered into NamUs in 2017. He went missing in 1980. And this is something I see a lot, you guys, with missing people. When you go into NamUs and you look, you will see that people have been missing 10 years before they ever get into NamUs. And I'm sorry, if you have a missing relative, you get on the police to get them put into NamUs, because it has to have, you have to have a police report, because I just went through a case with someone. You have to have a police report number. They actually will call the police to verify this case, okay? Pammy, you're right. Race could have had a huge part in it. And I agree with that.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
So with NamUs, if you have a loved one that's been missing, you get on whoever the detective is and you tell them you want them put in NamUs. And if you have to, write out what you want, because I have seen people in there that don't have all the tattoos listed. You want the eye color correct. You want everything correct. Hey, Laura Lee, glad you're here, sweetheart. You know, so make sure, because you can't go back in and correct it. So you can write it up, and NamUs actually said you can send it in with the police report. Now they're going to call the police department that's handling the case. So make sure you let them know what you're up to. Or just tell them, I'll fill this all out if you guys will give the go ahead, because you want people in NamUs. This is how you're going to find people. Oh, okay. The Squeege of Justice says he didn't even stop at streetlights when he was going through the east side. Hey, Racy, good to see you, sweetheart. No, I don't think we'll be stopping in Cleveland.
No.
Take that off our agenda. No Cleveland for us.
I thought the south side of Chicago was tough.
Well, it's kind of like the north side of Vegas, and I found myself there on a case. But hey, that's another story. But this was, so even though that one reconstruction wasn't a match, they finally get him put into NamUs, and in 2020, the medical examiner's office added some John and Jane Does to NamUs finally, and one appeared to match Danny. And so over the years, the investigators had examined and preserved evidence. Danny's rootless hair, because he didn't have a root on it, had been uploaded in the family's DNA to the database, but it wasn't enough for a match. So they didn't give up. And earlier this year, the lab tested again and successfully developed a DNA profile, ultimately confirming a match through investigative genetic genealogy. These are Danny's sisters, Bernice Mitchell and Betty Borden, and they finally got an answer. Let's see. Every city has its parts. You just see. Yeah. Okay. He says there's some good parts of Cleveland. I'll believe you, but I think I'll just stay out. Big cities, yuck. So his sister said he was an awesome brother. She said he taught me how to crochet, to do math, to braid hair. She said he took me everywhere. And sing, yes, sing. He taught me to sing. There was no confirmation or confirmed cause of his death, but at least they were able to bring Danny home. So the science behind the hope, what all these cases share, is that revolutionary power of the DNA. Because remember, we used to think if a hair had a root on it, yeah, you could track DNA, but without, you couldn't. Look at how far DNA is going, you guys. So when you have companies like Othram, and they're using these advanced techniques that weren't even imaginable a few decades ago, we're seeing the forensic grade genome sequencing. It can recover this DNA from a heavily degraded remains. So you have these remains that we've talked about that were in water and things are degraded. They can still take them and sequence that because they fill in a few things and they're able to come up with the right genetic genealogy leverages. And then the public DNA databases that construct the family trees, they find relatives. NamUs is the National Missing and Identified Persons Database links. And you really need to have family members in here because they help identify unidentified remains across the U.S. They even have a section that are unidentified people. So the tool gives hope to thousands of families waiting for answers. You know, and as we saw with Jack Potter, sometimes they also help bring the killer to justice. Who thought they might have gotten away with the murder? Oh, and by the way, the stripper girlfriend, she split after the money ran out. Yeah, just thought I'd add that bonus.
That sounds, quite normal there.
She went on to probably something bigger and better.
Mm-hmm.
And also the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. If you have a child, make sure they're in those systems because that's where police go to look, especially when you have different states involved. You are the advocate for your loved ones, you guys. Only fan agrees with you about the stripper.
Yeah.
It wasn't true love. I love it. So what can we do if we have a missing loved one? Well, get them in NamUs, you guys. Get them in the National Children's Network if they're a child. Provide DNA samples to law enforcement. Urine DNA might be crucial for identification. Keep that case active. Contact the investigators all the time. Share it on social media. Don't let the story get forgotten. Consider genetic genealogy services. Although costly, they become more accessible, and the years of worry and sleepless nights and constant wondering that these families go through. Know that pain firsthand. But these cases remind us that answers can arrive even decades later. So, don't give up hope because as we can see, these families all finally got answers as to bringing their loved one home. All of them haven't got, justice. Yeah, you're right, Laura Lee. And if there's two states involved, sometimes you have to show up in that other state. Don't always think that they're just going to take phone calls or emails. Show up in person. You keep pushing your loved one's case. Now for our missing people. This is Dale Kirkwood. He's 70 years old. He is an elder with his tribe. July 16th of 2025, he was last seen in the 1800 block of Salton Road. He's only 5'6". He's slender build, short black hair, and he has a short goatee, they said now. He was wearing a gray baseball cap and a white t-shirt, blue shorts, and white shoes. They said Dale's disappearance is seen as highly unusual, and his family is very concerned for him and the investigators. So Abbotsford Police Department, call 604-859-5225. If you want to remain anonymous, Crime Stoppers, you guys. 1-800-222-8477. This is Abbotsford, British Columbia, Canada. The reference number is 2025-30277. Sergeant Paul Walker is the media relations officer. Let's hope they can bring Dale home because the family and the tribe, they're worried about him. The next young man, Ethan Henry, was 14 when he disappeared from Phoenix, Arizona. He now would be 17. He's been missing for 2 years. The national number for the National Children's and Exploited Network is M as in Michael 217-2396-36. And he, like I said, he's disappeared from Phoenix. He's black hair, brown eyes, height is 5'6" and weighs 210 pounds. He was last seen on March 24th of 2023. He was wearing glasses. He may wear glasses. If anyone has information, the Phoenix Police Department at 602-262-6151. Now we have Jonathan P. Wichner, and the number for him is M as in Michael, 8980-39840. He's been missing for almost a year. August 29th of 2024, he disappeared from Shakopee, Minnesota. I think that's how you say it. If not, I'm sorry, everybody in Minnesota. He may be traveling up to Ramsey County, Minnesota. So if anyone's seen him or knows him, contact St. Paul PD at 651-2900-1111 or 1-800-843-5678. His family's worried about him. And then next we have Natalie Clifford. She's from Cheyenne, Wyoming, and we know how bad, sadly, the Wyoming and Montana area is for missing Indigenous girls. She's 17 years old. She's been missing since May of 24, the 24th of 2025. She was last seen in the area of 1,000 Alyssa Way, wearing a Wyoming's cowboy shirt, a black Nike zip-up hoodie. And if you see, call Cheyenne PD at 307-637-6525. And at least, unlike Montana, I'm calling you out, Montana, they did put her in the National Kids Network. M as in Michael, 6684-47209. Let's get her found. 17 years old. Poor thing. But each of these cases tonight have symbolized a family that finally managed to bring their loved ones home. They demonstrate the strength of persistence and science in individuals who refuse to let the forgotten remain forgotten. Whether it's Anthony Angelli Rea in Massachusetts Marsh, Wynona Michel in that Illinois field, Albert Frost misidentified for over 50 years, Martha Bassett, whose identity was stolen by systematic failures, or Danny Mitchell, lost in Cleveland. Each name got restored is a victory against darkness, you guys. These aren't just statistics. These cases are people with families who love them, who have searched for them and never lost hope. Sometimes the science catches up to the love. Because I think we've all heard cases where families have refused to move out of the home, the family home. If it's a child, won't change their phone number. And it doesn't matter how long they wait, because they are waiting for their children to come home or their loved ones. Remember, DNA is the key to helping families reconnect with their missing loved ones. In the darkness, we navigate together. These stories remind us that hope isn't foolish. It's essential. And sometimes after decades of waiting, hope can turn into reality. And if you have, William, we'll be thinking about you tomorrow. Okay, sweetheart? You hang in there, darling. But I love Othram's box that they had there. It says, your DNA, their justice. If you have sent in your DNA, make sure you check the box that the police can use it. Let's not be one of those that, I don't want anyone checking into my family. Hey, if I have a serial killer in my family, you can take them. I don't want them. I mean, come on, people. Who wants them in the family anymore? Don't want to look at them at no family reunion. Let them take them away.
Well, yeah, it makes sense to me. I mean,
yeah,
I wouldn't want them in my family either.
So make sure you check that box, because unless you do, they're not going to be able to use it. So it's essential. And sometimes after decades of waiting, hope does turn into that reality. And those family members do get to have their loved ones. Now, I did create a couple, I created one song, but I have two different takes on it. And Doc and I couldn't decide on one. So we did one for the outro and one for the intro. Intro, outro. I always get that.
So if you didn't get a chance to hear the intro, make sure you go back and listen to that, because these are powerful songs, and if it doesn't evoke an emotional tie with some people, they can't be right. I'm sorry, but these are very, very good songs.
Thank you, Doc. I appreciate that. But so let's do as we can, you know, take Uncle Ed. OnlyFan is giving up Uncle Ed. He's gone. Thank you guys for being here. Remember, every killer depends on your silence. Don't be the reason we have to share another story on this channel. If you know something, speak up, because that wasn't a mannequin. It never is. Until next time, you stay informed, compassionate, seek justice. If you have a case you want us to look into, or even just something containing to the criminal system you want us to delve into, let us know. We appreciate you guys. You guys are the best that we out there. And I have the best mods. And I just love everybody that comes and hangs out with us, because this is really cool that we can sit here and talk about some of these cases and try and bring encouragement and also give out suggestions. You know, let's do what we can to help. If you've got some time, look through NamUs. Sometimes you can try and match missing people's reports with remains that have been found. They have been able to do that. So I love you all. Thank you for coming. And I'll see you on Thursday. Ciao.
"20 years of empty chairs at dinner, 20 years of wondering where you are. Your mother keeps your room just as it was. Your father still looks for you in every car. We never stopped believing you'd come home. We never stopped calling out your name. Though we didn't know if you could hear us, we kept the porch light burning all the same. Tuesday morning, the detective's voice was soft and short. We found him, ma'am, we found your boy. After all these years, we know for sure. I dropped the phone and started crying joy. One, my baby's finally coming home. story may stay hidden in the dark, but you're not unknown anymore, my love. You're not just a question mark. And sometimes when they give us back your name, they catch the ones who took you away. Sometimes identification opens doors that lead to justice and a reckoning day. Now we know your name. Now we know you've been found. No more Jane or John Doe. No more searching around. You can finally come home where you belong, though questions about what happened may linger on. We have you back, we have you back. That's the first step. That's where healing begins. And when the guilty face their judgment day, we'll know justice beats in both our hearts. We'll know justice beats in both